Okay, sometimes I'm going to talk about books, and sometimes I'm lucky enough to get to talk about books. The last time that I got to talk about a book was with The Stolen Bicycle, and I'm really, really happy to be here getting to talk about Cathedral by Raymond Carver. But a little bit of history. For the longest time, I did not like short stories. To a certain extent, I still resonate much better with the novel form. But when I decided that I was going to return to the States, what I found myself with at work was, in the absence of continuing Japanese language education, which didn't feel like particularly good use of my time anymore, I decided to instead, not really I decided to, but at the time I had happened to watch After the Quake, which was a TV series that was kind of compiled into a movie based off the short stories, Murakami's short story collection After the Quake. And it was kind of mid. I didn't really think it was super great, but when I could have sworn that I had After the Quake somewhere, but I wasn't able to find it. But I finally did find it when I was cleaning out some of the stuff, when I was first making these sort of keep and donate piles and deciding really what to do with my books. And in the absence of Japanese studies, I took After the Quake to work and went ahead and read through it. I'd read specifically Super Frog Saves Tokyo. That's why I had gotten it here. Because I had a copy of it back in the US for completion's sake, but I didn't, like I said, I didn't even read short stories. So, and then Super Frog Saves Tokyo, I think, came up in something else I was watching once. So got it here, and I went ahead and read it for that. But this time I went through and read the whole thing, and while they weren't, I would definitely say After the Quake is the weakest, in my opinion, of all his short story collections. I really, really enjoyed going through it. And I also happen to have a copy of The Elephant Vanishes here, which I took to work and read through completely. And proceeded then, I have now read through all of Murakami's short story collections at work whenever I have a break, except for Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman. And the reason... I'm suddenly on board with short stories, and not only am I feeling motivated by short stories in terms of enjoying reading them, but I've gotten into writing flash fiction, and I've really been enjoying writing sub 1,000 word stories. I've written, I think, 15 in the last 3 months in between working on my novel. So, really, this has been kind of two-pronged, not just in the reading sense do I feel like I've really found something new that I've enjoyed, but in a writing sense, I felt motivated in a way that I haven't been. And so I've been looking, since I am coming up on some of the conclusion of Murakami's new stuff, which admittedly, like everything else with Murakami, I have to read multiple times. So even though I'm coming up on the last one, finishing up Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman, well, not really finishing, I'm about a quarter of the way through. It's very long. I still have this feeling of I could go back to the beginning, start over again, because there's just so much that you can get from each one, because they're written by Murakami. And the reason that I went for Raymond Carver next was really I'd actually always wanted to read Raymond Carver's stuff, particularly because of Murakami's what we talk about when we talk about running being based on the title What I Talk About When I Talk About Love, which is a collection of stories and a short story by Raymond Carver, which I always thought was just such a fantastic title, such a riveting title. And it was also a performance of it, a play performance, was used as a central motif in the movie Birdman. So Raymond Carver just always been kind of in my mind. But the reason that I actually picked up Cathedral to start with was because my last semester of college, I took an intro to fiction class, and I had a lot of friction with the teacher at the time, which is very unfortunate. In hindsight, it's one of those things that were I to talk with him now, were I to take the same class again now, I would really, really probably enjoy it, because so many of the stories that we read really stuck with me. not that I appreciated them in the moment. In fact, I found a lot of them really obnoxious in the moment, and we bickered a lot over my final paper. I ended up having to rewrite it like 3 times to get an A on it, and even then it was just kind of an A minus that he finally gave me out of stubbornness. But one of those stories that we read in class was Cathedral. And again, I couldn't explain to you why it stuck out in my mind. But I just got Cathedral stories just to give it a shot. Who the fuck knows? And right from Feathers, the very first story, I was hooked. I saw so much of Murakami in these stories, which they come before Murakami, but in terms of, and it's amazing to me how they're very different, but they're very similar in the sense that Carver has none of the surrealism of Murakami, none of the strangeness of Murakami, but at the same time, through his minimalist prose, he evokes so much interpretation and meaning in everything that, much like a Murakami story, you're just left with this sort of puzzle box of meanings that, depending on how you twist and turn things, you can just get so many different variants and interpretations out of it, that it's the exact same thing that I was talking about with rereading all the Murakami's, where I just finished this collection and I could flip through and start from Feather all over again and have just as compelling a time reading them. And again, much like Murakami, it's the day-to-day living and the examination of day-to-day life that, again, coupled with that interpretive aspect that really I appreciate so much and I loved so much. And loved really is the just perfect word, to the point where, like I said, where Murakami inspired me to write microfiction, Carver's, I kind of tried experimenting a bit with sort of Carver's minimalistic style, short sentences, not necessarily trying to emulate it, but just trying to explore it in my own writing to better understand how he achieves so much with his own writing in the limited amount of space. And I've never really reviewed a short story collection before. Obviously, I didn't even read short stories much before this. So I'm at a bit of a loss in where I should go from here, because I could just sit here and kind of review every single story. But I feel like if I do that, I'm not really getting to the heart of what makes these stories so special, because I've already mentioned the way that they're written is fantastic. The prose, which is engaging, but it's so minimalist in the way that it's not just that there's not these sort of long sentences flowing, quote unquote, purple. I don't, purple prose is whatever. In the sense that it's debatable when you sort of hit the line with purple prose, but it is very, and I know Carver resisted labels, so I don't want to label him minimalist, but it is very, very functional, but not functional. It's not workhorse prose, because it's it's exactly what what's his name, the true minimalist guy. Not Eisenhower, not Earnhardt. This is the problem with reading Pynchon, is that all my brain is on political names now. Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway. What he coined the iceberg effect, that I was kind of saying that the Perfect Worlds writer Clarissa Giowan couldn't quite, didn't seem to understand, was that how the iceberg effect works. This is a perfect embodiment of that, where there's one sentence, but the meaning behind the sentences, the implications behind the sentences thematically are just so deep that even though there's such tight prose, again, what isn't spoken is louder than what is spoken. And understanding that dichotomy is where a lot of the interpretation and meaning lies, and is why that sort of method of understanding, of parsing things through and figuring them out for yourself, is just one of the things that I adore in fiction. It's why I've spoken many times about that being why I'm attracted to surrealist literature. And I know it can be done outside of surrealist literature, but this is just far and away the best that I've seen it done. So it's not just the prose, which is so amazing, but it's also the focus. Well, okay, and it's also not just the focus on characters, which I really appreciate. These sort of, I've mentioned this with like Pynchon and some of the family stories or whatever, but like you really get deep into the psychology of these characters, which again is so damn impressive given the limited amount of space. Like that this sort of psychological portrait emerges. And again, it's the iceberg effect. It's the way that so many things are left to you to interpret about the characters and who they are, that by the time you're done, what you come away with is this sort of really multidimensional understanding of the characters. Perhaps, much like Murakami. I've always said with Murakami, you kind of get out of it what you put into it, which it sounds almost like a all-entitled defense. You can't say it's bad. But really what I find with so many people who don't like Murakami is that they didn't want to invest enough in the story to actually fully understand the story or come to their own conclusion. They much prefer stories that are much more blunt and have the answers given to you. And I can see the same people who feel that way about Murakami not getting anything out of these stories and not being able to understand them at all, because they really do depend on you to come in and sympathize with the characters, to read between the lines, to pick up on the subtleties of what's going on. But that focus on day-to-day life, on these aren't like super special moments in people's lives. These are themes of alcoholism, of marriage, of your relationship with your children, of moving on from trauma, of confronting trauma, of people losing their jobs. A lot of these stories are not happy stories. And I have to be honest, like, if these were all novels, I would have a really fucking hard time because of how grim a lot of them are. But the fact that they are short stories, and the fact that in a lot of them there is a kind of hopefulness there, that it's almost unexpected in the way that it's not what you would think of as a happy ending, but it's a nuanced ending that leaves a certain optimism for the future many times. But sometimes there isn't. Sometimes the ending is just really depressing. And it's the ability to sort of capture all of these various pros and cons, and, you know, what is love, finding the good in the bad, surrendering to the bad sometimes, the tragedy, but also the beauty that really is captured in the story. And I say the tragedy and the beauty, and those are the types of broad comments that I would usually rage at. So please allow me to back up a little bit here and try not to sound like I'm just trying to write a blurb for the book. Specifically, when I talk about the tragedy, I'm thinking of a story like, was it A Small Good Thing? Yeah, A Small Good Thing. In this story, not A Small Good Thing. A Small Good Thing is a good example of both tragedy and beauty, but the Chef's House. Okay, the second story, Chef's House, is a just blatantly depressing story about a man who is kind of who was an alcoholic and is kind of recovering, and he is able to cheaply rent a house and from a friend, and he invites his wife over, and for a period of time they're happy together and he's improving. But then his friend says, you know, I'm sorry, but my I don't remember if it's his daughter or his sister needs the house, so it's nothing personal, but you're gonna have to go. And the guy has so connected his recovery, his sense of being, his new self, the new self that he has come into this house, that all it takes is being removed from it for him to decide, not just in a sort of spur of the moment thing, but his wife actually sees the moment that he has decided that he is going to fall back into his addiction. And it's really a heartbreaking thing. And again, like I said, just such a negative story. But at the same time, when I talk about the beauty, you have a story like, where is it? Oh, Vitamins, another example of a very downer story. Fever. Fever is absolutely a story about a man moving on from his wife, and how at the end of the story, he kind of is able to accept that she left him, that she's never coming back, but that he has his 2 kids and is able to start building towards something new. Or The Compartment, which also has a sort of upbeat ending, albeit not in a sort of traditional way. And I don't say this in terms of like trying to spoil the stories for you. I say it again because it's so easy to say like tragedy and beauty in these sort of broad terms, but I want to be more specific, because it is a very specific kind of beauty and tragedy that Raymond Carver focuses on. It's the domestic beauty, the domestic tragedy. These aren't larger than life characters, which I know I keep comparing it to Murakami, but like, goddamn, this is the exact same stuff that I love in Murakami, and I can see like so much of Carver's influence in Murakami short stories, and particularly in the kind of writer that Murakami became, where, like I said, Hear the Wind Sing, very much Kurt Vonnegut fan fiction, but a lot of Murakami short stories, and even like Fever in this, if you changed a few things around and you told me that Fever was a Murakami story, I might believe you. And there are some Murakami short stories that I read that are like, oh, Raymond Carver could have written this. So just mad respect to both of them. And mostly, again, like, I haven't done a short story review, so but I hope what I've imparted upon you is some of the essence of this, and some of what makes it so good as a collection, and have really, like I said with The Stolen Bicycle, this is something that I really want people to read. It is something that I feel like I get to talk to you about, even though I always was under the impression that Raymond Carver was a really popular author, and yet when I asked my mother, my friends, my father, my grandmother, nobody's actually heard of him. So I don't know. At any rate, as much as I've enjoyed this, it absolutely feels like my duty to promote this to people. Anybody who enjoys short stories, give it a shot. Anybody who enjoys Murakami's work, give it a shot. I would really recommend anybody give it a shot, although I can't say necessarily that even if you don't enjoy short stories, you should give it a shot, just on the grounds that as somebody who didn't enjoy short stories for such a long time, it wasn't until I was in the right mindset to enjoy them that I started to enjoy them. So in that sense, you can try it, but if it doesn't gel with you, that's okay. It's a specific format that accomplishes a specific thing, but in terms of what a short story can accomplish in a limited amount of space, Raymond Carver feels like a master, which I guess I can only say so much because I've only really read 2 collections, so what the fuck do I know? Anyway, see you next time. I don't know what I'm going to be talking about next time. Pretty much everything is either donated or sent, so I'm really running limited on the type of stuff I can talk about. So see you then.